everybody, welcome back to The Beard and the Bald. I am Paul Shirey, the Beard. Officially, Beard is back. And the Bald, Christopher Bumbray, joining us from foggy London town.
Man, it's actually very nice out today. You know, I'm looking outside. I'm in a beautiful hotel, the Royal Horse Guards on Whitehall. And
I've been there.
It is a very nice hotel. They've got a little terrace outside that I wanted to sit on, but it was a little too loud for the podcast, I think. And I'm looking outside. It's quite nice. You know, it's never super sunny in London. It's always slightly overcast, but it's a pretty nice day. I went for a nice long walk before and walked all around. And it's been, it's beautiful here, man. It's very nice.
I love it. I absolutely love London.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places to go.
I feel a lot more at home, curiously, in London than I do in New York. You know, and I'm actually going back to New York in about 2 weeks, just on a quick holiday with my girlfriend for our anniversary, because I wanted to see Network on Broadway. You know, the Bryan Cranston.
Okay.
And it closes in about a week, so I managed to get tickets from a scalper for like the Sunday matinee, and I'm going. And she's coming with me, and we got like an Airbnb and stuff. But we're gonna probably stay. We're staying in Brooklyn because we went to New York around Christmas time for a BFCA thing. And I'll tell you, man, we felt like a couple of rubes in New York. There's so many friggin' people, man, all around. Like there's just too many people, too many.
Yeah.
But London,
well, I always tell people London is like it's a cleaner, more posh New York.
Yeah, I feel
like
quite.
New York is just kind of a. I'm not a huge New York fan. I haven't been sold on New York.
The people are very nice in London too. I find everybody's quite chatty and everybody's quite friendly, and you know it's good. I mean, so it was rather posh, you know, in this neighborhood that I'm in now. But
well, you're in a nicer part.
I was talking to couple of the junketeers earlier, and one of them, Junketeers sounds like an action movie, but
sounds like a Mouseketeer.
This guy Max Avery, he only ever wears like t-shirts.
Yeah, Max. I love nice Max. Guy.
Yeah,
I have one of Max's shirts. That's where I got my stash Superman shirt.
Yeah, he was wearing that today.
He made it. He created it.
He always wears t-shirts, and he was telling me that he gets, whenever he goes to like a fancy restaurant, like in the hotel, he always gets seated in the corner near the back. There's another guy too from Texas, Michael. And he was saying that like people clutch their purses and stuff when he gets into the elevator. Well, he doesn't look like the guy who would rob anyone. Ooh. This guy Michael, he's from Texas. He has like a nose ring. He always wears a backwards baseball cap, a backwards black baseball cap. Yeah. Well. I guess he hasn't embraced baldness like I have. But it's
you know, there's a lot of interesting characters in our line of work.
Sure.
Particularly on the junket thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I'm fairly standard. Actually, I was looking at my Detective Pikachu interviews, and I look like ragged shit. Mm-hmm. I was so tired, and like my skin is shiny. I look terrible. That's fine. I can admit it. But like,
I looked pretty bad on my Bad Times at the El Royale one.
Yes, you know, sometimes it just happens. Like I was in the middle phase of like my hair growing out, so like it's just a bad fucking. I just looked like shit. I apologize to everybody that watched this.
I think I looked okay today. You know, I always dress up a little bit more for these, you know, so I wore like, I had my jacket, like a blazer with over, you know, a sweater and a collared shirt. You know, I was wearing jeans and like Vans, but you know, I wore like a sweater and a collared shirt and a blazer, you know, kind of just casual, you know, but I had some makeup put on me because they have a hospitality suite, and I was like, you know, why not, you know, touch up the eyes, take the bags out, you know, because I'm not sleeping particularly well because there's jet lag, you know, and stuff, but they remove the bags from your eyes and stuff and just touch you up a little bit. You know?
I think that was my mistake at Pikachu, is I didn't go to makeup.
We're interviewing gorgeous people too. That's the thing. So we're gonna look like fucking crap compared to them.
Well, not me. I mean, I'm
you're beautiful, but I mean, but I was
just kidding. No, but you know, it's what the point I was getting to was that like there's a lot of like people in our line of work that are very kind of flashy, and like there's a lot of unique personalities. Everybody kind of has like a look, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you can't mistake Frosty for anybody else. That's Frosty.
Yeah, you know, Steve, like, you know, Steve has a very distinct, you know, look. I think that's something that works in his favor too for this line of work, where you know, he's easy to recognize to a lot of celebrities.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Whereas, you know, guys, you know, the standard guys are like, who's that guy? You know, if you don't have a distinguishing characteristic, I mean, these people are run through the grind of, all manner of personalities they have to deal with, and it's like impossible to remember everybody,
Well, that's why I actually wore a pin today on my blazer from the Kubrick exhibit that I went to yesterday. I wore a shining pin of like the carpet and stuff because I was hoping that somebody would be like, "Oh, what's that pin?" And it happened 3 out of the 5 rooms that I did, somebody
Yeah.
mentioned it.
No, it always helps. Like a
Well,
lot of
it's
times I'll
like
wear like a
yeah,
t-shirt or a shirt. We're peacocking, man.
yeah,
Basically,
just
you kind
just
of
an
peacock and
icebreaker.
you get out there and yeah, exactly. It kind of like what people don't realize, and we get this, we've had this before, is that these kinds of junkets are speed dating. You have 4 minutes
Oh yeah.
to meet, assuming even if you've met them before, I guarantee you they don't fucking remember you. To meet, discuss, and even if they do remember you, they don't fucking know you. They're not going to be like, "Hey, how's the wife and kids?" You know what I'm saying? They're
I've
just like, "Hey."
often had people think that they knew me, but it was the first time I was interviewing them. That
Oh,
happened to
it
me.
happens all the time,
That
and
happened to me a
it's very
couple times.
common.
It happened to me with one of the first interviews I ever did was with the girl Alexa Vega from Spy Kids when she did Repo. She was like, "Oh
Mhm.
hey," and she was like, "Oh, it's good to see you again." And it's like, and she's like, "I know you from somewhere," and I was like, "No, not really." Carolyn Reed said the same thing. You know, the comedian from Sabrina, and then it happened to me more recently with Colby Smulders. Colby Smulders was like, "Oh, it's so nice to see you again," and I was like, "Oh, we've never interviewed you before." She goes, "No, I have interviewed you before.
Was that for
You've
Never
interviewed."
Back Down?
Yeah, she's like, "You've interviewed me before." I'm like, "No," and she goes, "Oh, I just feel so comfortable around you. You have a really nice smile." And then I started blushing.
Damn.
I started blushing.
You
Oh
should have
God.
pounced. You
Yeah.
fuck.
It's
Um,
it's funny though. But yeah, the Shining Pin. Like I was doing the Dark Phoenix junket. I can talk about it, and they it worked a bit. You know, like Ty Sheridan. As soon as he saw it, was like, "Oh, what's that pin you're wearing?" And I was like, "Oh," he goes, "Oh, is that The Shining?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was at the Kubrick exhibit at the Design Museum, and he's like, "Oh." And then Alexander Shipp was like, "Oh, I saw that. I saw that in New York. Yeah, it was really good, and the rooms are really cool." And she was talking about it a bit, and so that was nice. And Kimberg saw it right away, and Hutch Parker and Fassbender and McAvoy, I think, were kind of somewhat worse for wear, so I didn't mention it.
they were
Turner,
too drunk.
Turner, yeah, Turner and Chastain didn't say anything, but
It's like when I interviewed Aaron Taylor Johnson and Chris Pine for Outlaw
oh,
King.
okay.
And the interview was over and I stood up to leave and I actually had a jacket on, but Aaron Taylor Johnson saw my Samurai Jack tattoo and he's like, can I see the rest of your tattoo?
Yeah,
I was like, sure. So I took my jacket off and then him and Chris Pine basically are grabbing my arm and turning it because, it's a sleeve. It goes all the way around. And so they're like turning my arm and just examining it and talking about it. It's very strange,
yeah,
but interesting at the same time. But it's like that's a peacocking thing too. It's tattoos. Like people will recognize you for those too.
yeah.
So it's a weird thing.
Well, it's funny. Sophie Turner has tattoos. Like they were on display when we did the interview.
On her arms?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna ask. I wasn't gonna ask about them because it's not really my role. But
Like, do you have
she had
tattoos
some
anywhere
tattoos. Yeah,
else?
no, yeah, she had like nice tattoos, very subtle tattoos, but she had tattoos.
Yeah, that's kind of like the new thing is like people getting like cursive writing, like
It wasn't cursive
each
writing. It was like I think it
place.
was like but it was like a butterfly or something. But my
Oh,
girlfriend has a ton of tattoos, so it was kind of I'm used to it.
oh yeah. She seems like she would have a lot of tattoos. She's
My
got kind
girl,
of that look. Yeah,
yeah, with the well, I mean, yeah, she does. She does have a lot of tattoos.
that's cool though. I like
Really,
tattoos.
really elaborate tattoos. Like her whole back is tattooed. Like very elaborate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, my girlfriend has tattoos as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as elaborate, but she does have them.
Mm-hmm. I don't have any.
Well, I don't know what your fucking problem is. Why do you hate body art?
I feel like not getting one now is the new getting one because so many people have them. I feel if I want to
Well,
be a rebel,
here's the
I don't
thing.
get one.
If you're gonna get a tattoo,
Has
like
to be
there's
has to be something that means something to you.
yeah,
That's
it's got to be something that means something, but you also have to find an artist that can pull off
yeah.
what you want. Like a lot of times, like people that just show up at a tattoo shop and flip through a book and be like, "Yeah, I want that one," or You know,
I
they
have
show up and then they just like they've never met the artist. They don't know the kind of work they do, and you're just trusting this person to draw on you for life.
Yeah, well, I've got a friend who has a really bad tattoo. So he went to get like he somebody was like I guess just starting out as a tattoo artist and they offered to do a
Ugh.
free tattoo for him. And he was like, "Sure." And he got them to tattoo Slayer on his arm, right? Like the band logo. And it looked like somebody like he showed it to us and then after he left my girlfriend was like, "My God, it looks like somebody wrote on him in crayon." Like it was so bad. It looked like he had done it himself to himself, right? And then
It's
like we
like a
saw him,
prison tattoo.
yeah, and then we saw him again a week later, and he goes, "Yeah, isn't it awful?" Like he's like, "It's just terrible, isn't it? It's fucking terrible." And it's on him forever. It's his lower forearm. It covers his whole arm. He went to a real tattoo artist and got it touched up to like fix it, so it looks significantly better now than it did before. But my God,
But it still
I mean,
says Slayer.
it was bad. Well, he loves the band, so that was fine. He wanted the tattoo, but it was like there's this one too. There's this
I'm gonna
kid.
get Warrant tattooed on my
There's a
lower back.
there's a kid that I know in NDG. I know his mom, and
She's
he's
my cherry pie.
he's got the word Irie tattooed on his neck. You know, like the Jamaican word Irie, and it goes all the way from his chin down past his Adam's apple down to his chest, and it covers his neck like a turtleneck. And it's just, and the kid was 16 when he got it done, and like the fucking tattoo artist should be in prison for that
No,
because that's on him now for life. And I mean, you can't cover that up. It's all over your neck.
my favorite is the tattoos that are misspelled, like
Oh,
grand.
yeah. Well,
Those are the best.
Laura's constantly sending me tattoo fail photos because she's really into that.
Those are so fucking funny, dude. Oh my god, I lose my shit when I see those. So fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. How does that happen?
I think there's some really dumb people and some really
I mean,
dumb
it's literally. I mean,
artists.
you got to have two really dumb people,
Yeah.
knocking heads to make that happen. The artist and the person asking for it.
Hmm.
So that's literally two people that don't know how to fucking spell.
Hmm.
It's hilarious. And then like I love the ones like too where people post afterwards. They're like, "Look at my beautiful tattoo. Look what I did." And then people's like,
Yeah, it's bad. It looks like garbage, actually.
Oh fuck. Anyways, let's we should get into the show. I'm sure people are done listening to us bullshit. I figured we would just launch into Game of Thrones and get that going.
So
And
I
get that over
watched it.
with.
So I watched it. I had to do some figuring for this. So I was invited to see it at a bar by one of the journalists here, Kevin McCarthy, invited me to go with them to the bar to watch it. But instead, what I did was I managed to get myself a VPN because the bar was fucking far. So I managed to download a VPN and I was able to watch it with Crave because Crave's not as sophisticated as HBO Go and you don't have to like change the DNS or anything. So it worked pretty well. But because of that, I was chatting with people too much about how I watched it. So I was passing around my iPad yesterday to people that wanted to watch it. So I had to delete everything incriminating on there, of course. And it was so yeah, like my Messenger app, I deleted and stuff. I even delete my Spotify on my because I don't want people to look at what kind of music I download. I'm very shy about that kind of thing. And but it was yeah, I mean, I watched it in the hotel. I stayed up though till 2 a.m. in the morning to watch it. And after having not slept, having been up for 24 hours. Um, but it was, you know what, man? I mean, as much as people like to bitch about the last season, I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I overall enjoyed it, and I really have been saying all season long that I thought that they were going to leave it open for a potential sequel series somewhere down the line, and I
Way
stand by
more
that.
than I
Yeah,
thought they would too.
because they really left it open, and even at one point Tyrion says to Jon when Jon says, "I'm probably never going to see you again," and then
It's like,
Tyrion said, "Well, I wouldn't be so sure." And it's like
yeah.
they're
And he's like,
clearly.
let's
I don't
and
even
then
think.
when the part where he's like, ask me again in 10 years. It's like
And
that
and,
sounds like a good waiting period to catch up with these characters 10 years
and
down the line.
Drogon flies away with Daenerys's body. I mean,
Which is kind of like, and
yeah,
we've
they left
already
it
seen
way open.
characters like
Yeah,
Jon Snow being
yeah,
able to be
oh,
resurrected.
yeah.
So
They left that way open, and there's still
yeah, that
story.
is a screen door swinging back and forth
And
open.
Jon Snow still has enemies because Grey Worm is still loyal to Daenerys and wants him dead,
Yep.
and he's and wants Jon Snow fucking dead. So that could ease, and he's still loyal to her. So if she came back, Grey Worm would be like, "Let's fucking do this shit." and let's kill that motherfucker. And he even violated Bran, even because Bran put him on the Night Watch, and then Jon Snow just went off with the Wildlings and Ghost.
Yeah, but Bran won't do anything.
I know, but still, and then Arya's out there fucking exploring. I mean, they really, really left it open.
Which is great. I think it's honestly, you had such a young cast, right?
Yeah, there's no
Like
reason. Not
all
to.
of these guys were
Absolutely.
so young,
Oh yeah,
and we could easily wait 10 fucking years,
absolutely.
and then they could say, "Guess who's back?"
They're all in
And
their
that would be
Yeah,
perfect. Like
yeah.
for everybody, Emilia Clarke, for fucking Kit Harington, for Sophie, for Macy, for all of them, they can all come back. Like the
Of
whole
course,
thing could be continued.
they all
Which
want to come back. I'm sure. I mean, they're all very young. They're all in their early 20s, early to late 20s, and I mean, massive paychecks they would
I
get if
think
they came
they
back too.
honestly, you know what? Everybody's like, oh, fucking Benioff and Weiss were just rushing so they could do Star Wars. I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to bet that a big part of this is like, this cast needs a fucking break.
Yeah,
This is 8 years living between Belfast and wherever their home is, and traveling and spending all this time away from family and friends and just, off the grid. And this has been their whole life. And it's 8 years. And probably, by the time it's all said and done, you're looking at like 9 or 10 years. And they need a break. Like, could you imagine being in a production for
no,
10 years of like from the time you're cast to the last scene you shoot? That's a long time to ask of anybody.
and
And
it's who among them is going to have a really great post Game of Thrones career too. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it really remains to be seen. Because
yeah.
I feel like Harrington was tested as a leading man, and it didn't quite work out for him yet. Sophie
Well, he's
Turner
still young, and that's the thing
hasn't
is,
really had a great role. Yeah, I mean, she's and Maisie Williams hasn't really had a big part either. And it's funny. I mean, we really don't know. I think Emilia Clarke, I think, probably has the best chance, maybe because she's had a couple hit movies under her belt. But who knows? I mean, it is a very young cast, and I feel like they would all come back if there was. I don't. My big question mark is I don't know if Weiss and Benioff will come back. Like they could potentially decide that they're done. Although I'm sure that the enticement of God knows how much money would help. But HBO. It's funny because I was arguing about this with one of the journalists at the press junket this morning, and they were like, "No, they're done. No, everybody's done. Everybody's over it, and it's too expensive for HBO to produce." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? It's not too expensive. It's their golden goose, man. They make so much money
please.
worldwide off that show. They make a ton of money, and
And
it's
throw
this.
in merchandising and
Oh
everything
my
else.
god."
Fuck
They're coming
off.
back. Like, well, they might do the prequels, and it's like the thing is, the prequels could fucking suck. And even if
Yeah.
the prequels, and it's only a
And they
pilot, so
take
it's a
place thousands of years
yeah.
prior to these events. So
If the prequel's a hit, I feel like that's even more cause for them to bring back Game of Thrones because it shows that people are
absolutely.
still.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, they're working on like 3 other shows, and they haven't even disclosed
Mhm.
what the other shows are.
They learned the
One of
lesson.
those shows very well could be a continuation that they're developing. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Who the fuck knows?
They learned the lesson from Breaking Bad because Breaking Bad exploded in popularity after it ended, and I'm sure, are kicking themselves for killing off Walter White. I mean, they're bringing back, they're doing a Breaking Bad movie with Jesse. If Walter White hadn't been killed off, 100% they would be doing another Breaking Bad movie with him. If James Gandolfini had lived, there would be some kind of Sopranos
Yeah,
continuation,
I
and I'm
guarantee
sure
you it'd
that
be a
I'm
fucking that
sure
the
they're
Sopranos
doing the
movie
prequel.
probably
No,
wouldn't be a prequel. It'd be a sequel.
no, of course, and it's clear like that was the intention at the beginning, and it was because he died they weren't able to do it, but there for sure would be some kind of follow-up series or follow-up movie, 100%.
And there's a weird thing about this sense
I
of
think Mad
finality
Men will come back.
of an ending to a TV show versus the ending to a movie. I feel like there's so much invested
Yeah.
with a TV show because you spend years
Hmm.
with a show. You know what I'm saying? And it's like
They become part of your
it's like
life story.
yeah, it's like losing a friend in a weird
Yeah.
way, or a family member. And I like, don't take that to heart and be like, oh my god, you're so confused about
No, I know,
what's
but
important.
you know,
But it has a similar impact where you don't want it to end. You don't want it to reach any sense of finality. But also the truth of things is the truth of life is that everything ends.
Mhm.
Like everything has to come to a close at some point. Everything is going to end. And the thing with these characters in a TV show is that you're watching a small portion of their lives, typically. Game of Thrones was 8 years, about 8 years worth of story for these characters, but there's much, much more to go. So
Sure.
when you say it's the end, it's more of like, well, this is the end of
A
this
chapter,
chapter.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean this is the end. Like 6 feet under would be the end. You know what I'm saying? That's where you
Well,
see
because they showed
everybody
them at
fucking
the point
die.
of death. Yeah, exactly. But
But
they
how many
also,
other shows do that? Or like Lost, where they're all in the afterlife, you
well, it was a
know?
specific story that they wanted to tell, and there wasn't really anywhere for them to go. But Game of Thrones, I mean, they leave it wide open, and this was a show that was consistently successful to the end. I mean, none more so than the ending. It's the most watched show in HBO history for the last 4 weeks. Every episode has been the most watched show in HBO history and breaking each record. I mean, HBO will want it back at some point. It was almost kind of desperate when you were watching the trailers after the show, because it was like, no, we still have all these great shows. Please
Oh
stay
God,
subscribed
wasn't
to
it?
HBO.
It was
It
too.
was
And you
like,
know what?
God.
And the thing was, I was like, nothing looks as good as Game of
Yeah, I know.
Thrones.
It's like, fuck, man. I mean, Big Little Lies season 2 looks great and everything, but I don't know. I mean, if it's the same audience, and like, I hope
Yeah.
Watchmen's great. His Dark
Like if you
Materials.
ask me, you're like,
I don't.
hey, would you like to see this new show, or would you rather see Game of Thrones continue? I'd be like, oh, Game of Thrones continue.
It's like, please keep subscribing, but in the marketplace,
Guys, we got this show. It's very progressive. It's gonna be great. You should watch it. It's gonna be awesome. It's so good. We're gonna love it. Oh, also, we remade the Golden Compass. It's a show now. I'm like,
yeah.
fuck. This is what you're
Well,
selling.
people love those books, though. I mean, my
Uh,
girlfriend's a huge His Dark Materials fan and hated the movie because apparently it wasn't very well done. But I mean, they really do have an opportunity to bring it back, though, and I'm certain that they will in some form or another. I don't know if necessarily Benioff or Weiss will be involved, but I feel like in an odd way they would be the most expendable. Like, if you could, I feel like you could get another. I mean, they were great, and they were obviously essential, pivotal to the show. But who knows? There's a lot of talent
Yeah,
out.
but and I thought, and here's the thing, Weiss and Benioff, I think I mean, these guys, they're taking a lot of shit right now
Oh
because
yeah,
of
I mean,
people that are like whining about not getting what they wanted, but and they're like, oh, they're not the creators. George R. R. Martin is. I'm like, oh yeah, who heard of Game of Thrones prior to the show?
well, and George
It was
R.
a
R.
very
Martin too
niche
is
kind
is
of series of books at
and
that time.
George R. R. Martin is very clearly, blocked on his last couple books, is having a very hard time finding a way to end the series, and even came out today in an interview and said that he thought that it was a great ending, that they did a good job, and that obviously they're writing for TV, and it's a very different form than
Yeah,
what he's doing. He's got 3,000 pages. They had 6 hours, so it's
yeah,
not the same thing at
it's a
all.
totally
And
different
he
kind
was
of.
talking about how hard it's been for him to wrap it up, and it's not an easy thing to wrap up a series like that and to reach everybody's lofty expectations. And people identify so much with the characters. They all have very preconceived notions about the way it should end, not necessarily about the way it was ever going to end or the way it was ever intended to end. Like, I find it hard to believe that people didn't think that Danny was kind of leading up to what happened, and I actually
I'm
liked.
telling you, the rewatches of this series are going to peel back the layers on
Yeah.
of who Danny was. And I think it's fucking brilliant to this. I mean, it is so brilliant. I think you have to hand it to George R. R. Martin because he set up those, I mean, he's the architect, but I think the way that it was presented,
Mhm.
from the casting to the way that it was written and shot and presented, I think that Weiss and Benioff are fucking geniuses the way that they orchestrated it because we loved Daenerys. I loved Daenerys. I thought, oh, she's
Yeah,
so
me too.
badass. Like, she's great. And I never stopped for a second to think, oh, maybe she's kind of evil. But I started to feel that way over the last 2 seasons. And then at the end, when Tyrion is talking to Jon and he's like, she killed the slavers in Marine and she killed, all
Yeah.
these, and she crucified these men. She's like, we all cheered, but we never stopped to think that maybe we shouldn't,
Yeah.
but it was because she had this, and it's just this personality, this presence. And and even Tyrion was like, he's like, I know you love her. I love her. And I'm kind of like, really? But that is the power of her influence. Like, she really was this amazing, larger than life kind of leader, but she was also somebody that was very cutthroat in what she wanted. And it was stated like from season to season that I will take what is mine
Hmm.
with fire and blood. She
Yeah.
said, I mean, and it all came true. So then people are like shocked that she
She
did.
warned
She's
him.
like,
She
yeah,
warned
I mean, she's been said like multiple times, but instead of us looking at it for what it was, we looked at it for what we wanted it to be. And that is where I think you get this big divide of where people feel cheated or upset about her basically taking this quote unquote dark turn. But this isn't a sudden dark turn. This has been a long, winding turn
I
that
liked the way
led
it
to that.
ended too, with Jon killing Dany and then Drogon burning the throne and sparing him, having mercy, because they've been teeing up the fact that the dragons are much more sophisticated than people
But
think, that they're
but
actually smart,
could
aware.
Drogon even kill Jon?
Yeah,
Remember, I mean, Daenerys, she's a Targaryen. She couldn't be burned by fire.
yeah,
So we don't really know. And actually, my girlfriend had mentioned that, which I agree with. We never did see the extent
hmm,
of Jon's Targaryen blood, and really, I do kind of agree. I think there was so much buildup of who Jon really was and not a lot of payoff to who
yeah.
he was.
But the thing is,
Because,
that could be another show though. Like, I almost feel like it's being saved for somewhere down the
I
line.
mean,
Like,
it
I
would have
really
to
think
be.
there's another game going on that they just won't cop to because they don't want to seem so cynical. But I don't think that they're necessarily even allowed to end it definitively. It's gonna be back. I mean, it will. It's just a fact. It's gonna be back. I'd be
I
shocked if
agree
in
with
10
you.
years we don't have another Game of Thrones. It might take a
I
while,
wouldn't
but it
I
will be
wouldn't
back at
have
some point.
agreed with you initially, because I really expected a way more bittersweet ending than what we got.
Yeah.
Like I always kept saying, I was like, this is Game of Thrones, it's gonna be a downer. But it wasn't. Like it was actually filled with a lot of hope.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it resonated. When Bran was chosen to be king, I didn't even give it a second thought because Bran, honestly, has been kind of like weird, and I felt like his role was something else. And he kept saying, he's like, I'm no longer Bran Stark, I'm somebody else. So in a way, this is Bran Stark being chosen as king, is also him kind of coming back to
And
recognize who
he
he really
knew it
was.
the whole time. He knew it was going to happen. Who's the most, in a way, he's the most evil character because he knew it was going to happen with Danny and he never said shit.
Fucking piece of shit.
But it looks like he's going to be a good king at the end. Like, I like the way people are discussing things, and how are we going to benefit people? But there's enough corruption too, though, with Braun, and you can still, like, there's like Braun is the master of coin. Like, there's still shit going on.
Well, and that's the thing is like as much as things change, they still stay the same.
Well, the
So
wheel has not been broken. That's the thing. And I mean, you could even say the White Walkers could be back potentially. It's
and
born out of humanity's sins, right? I mean, the wheel has not been broken.
well, and to break the wheel, even if like when the scene where Samwell's like he proposes democracy and they all laugh.
Yeah,
Uh, but even if they did, even if they had democracy, basically what you would create is a bunch of little more Game of Thrones. Because what is democracy? I mean, look at what we have now. Like just with our political system, you have parties that lots of infighting, lines drawn in the sand, and all this other shit. It would just be more of the same, just on a smaller scale.
yeah.
So I just feel like no matter any way they go, I think that's kind of the big thing is like you can't really break the wheel.
And I mean, area heading west of Westeros. I mean, you're gonna find out what happens. I mean, it's just
Yeah, she's gonna find out the world is flat and her ship's just gonna fly off the fucking edge of the earth and fall into space.
anyway. Suffice to say, I really enjoyed Game of Thrones. The whole journey has been great, and it didn't end exactly the way I thought it was going to be. And I can't say it was 100% satisfying of an ending, but it was appropriate, and I really do think it's going to be back.
Yeah, I think appropriate is the right word. I think it's earned. I think is better. I felt like the fates of the characters was earned. Sansa becoming Queen of the North.
Hmm.
I felt that's the direction they were going, and it felt natural for that to happen. It felt natural for Arya to just sail off. That's who she's always been, and that's who she is. And I love honestly that that Jon went off to be with the wildlings, and Jon petting ghosts.
Seems where he'd be the most.
God damn it. And
Yeah,
here's the
finally.
thing that I gave some thought to after. with John petting Ghost, I felt like, we were all pissed, including me. Like John wouldn't even like give the dog a pet when he was leaving, or the
That
wolf,
was dumb. Yeah.
the dire wolf. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, it's expensive. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like he would have at least pet his wolf. But I gave it some thought, and I think that part of that is it was John symbolically by not petting Ghost. It's like he's basically saying, well, I'm going to go and be like this part Targaryen leader with Daenerys and serve her, and that's my new identity. That's who I am. And then at the end, this last episode, he sees Ghost and he walks to Ghost and he embraces him and he pets him, and they take off together. And I felt like that was John reaffirming that he is choosing to be the bastard. He's
Yeah.
choosing to be Jon Snow,
He was
not
happy that way.
not a Targaryen. And it goes back to the first episode where they find the dire wolves and they're giving, they had just enough for all the Stark children. And then there was like this runt of the litter, which was Ghost. And John, they're like, oh, well, John, you take that one. And that was John kind of at that moment was like, well, you get the bastard pup because you're the bastard. And so at the end of the show, John is, it re-embraces Ghost, and, they
He was.
ride off together, and
And you know what? Ghost was the goodest boy.
such a good boy. Now
Yeah,
without
very good boy.
missing an ear because of those
Oh.
goddamn White Walkers,
Poor guy.
but still a fine looking dire wolf.
I'm sure they're gonna have nice adventures with the Wildings.
Yeah.
It seemed like that's where he was the happiest, and that's where those were his
Like,
kind of
yeah,
people.
John being like the new Mance Raider is fucking perfect. Like, honestly, that is
Yeah.
like a perfect ending for this character. It's who John has been. Like this, I think there was kind of like this desire for a Disneyfied kind of ending where John and Daenerys uh, are married, and she
With his aunt.
somehow has a baby, is like she's able to have children, and they're ruling the Iron Throne happily, and they're doing good work now. And oh look,
that
there's
would've
Tyrion as the
been that
hand, and oh, and Sansa comes to visit all the time, and she's a good little ruler at Winterfell. Like, what the fuck kind of ending were people wanting here? Like
Yeah, it would have sucked.
that would have been disgusting. Honestly, that would have been like, man, fuck this show. If some
Yeah.
shit like that happened, I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? So
I'm glad it's been left open, and they can. There's so many ways that they can go with it, and they don't even have to. If they did a spinoff, like let's say they decided to do an Arya spinoff, okay, it could easily happen sooner than later. You could do that, and then after a couple seasons, start bringing in other characters very easily.
yeah.
And then change over to, and then become something else. I mean, very easily.
I don't think I wouldn't do that. I mean, personally, I'm not in charge here, but I would just revive the show with the characters. I would just be Game of Thrones, some fucking subtitle, whatever. Because I don't think that, as cool as it would be to focus on one character, it's kind of like, oh, I want to see what's going on with Sansa. I want to see what's going on with Jon. I want to see
The only thing I really didn't like about the finale, and it's just because I fucking hate when shows do this and when movies do this, is when Tyrion gets a Song of Ice and Fire book.
Oh, I know, that was so.
And it's just
head.
fucking lame. It's like the same thing whenever like a movie is based on a book or something, like On the Road, where it ends with him writing a book and it says On the Road. Like I hate that fucking shit. It's such a cliche. That pissed me off. That was the one thing about it.
Very
really
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I will say one thing too that stuck out, and an issue that I cannot resolve, is the last episode we saw Varys writing those scrolls, and that was a huge thing, and they showed that he had been writing them for like a full day, and they was like,
what was he writing?
He had written a bunch, and it said like, hey, he was obviously, they showed a close-up writing, he's like, Jon Snow is Ned Stark's heir, and this is like the whole story, and they were all gone. Who the fuck got those? And what happened? Nobody seems to have come forward and been like, hi, Jon Snow actually should be the king. And that just seemed to like just go away into nothing. And it felt like, well, they were just using that as a means for Daenerys to kill Varys, but those scrolls still got out.
Otherwise,
and once those scrolls get out and people see that, just based on their traditional views, up to and including the fact that they laughed at Samwell for even suggesting that they change it, you feel like there would be people that are, these people have this culture in Westeros. They would have been like, well, we kind of want the true heir. I don't really care what, this midget dude said at a council that we weren't at and decided for all of us that it would be Bran Stark as king. Actually, Jon Snow should be fucking king.
I like when
So
Sansa tells Tully to sit down, though.
that show, that was hilarious.
We have been talking about Game of Thrones for an hour, though. Perhaps we should talk about something else in the podcast. Can we go
What?
to the next one pretty fast? So Weiss and Benioff are writing the next Star Wars chapter.
Yeah, so it was
I mean, it's a
announced.
no-brainer to me, though. People are acting like they're pissed off, but I mean, if you want to see, an example of guys that are good at building universes, I mean,
Jesus
that's
Christ, like
Weiss and
who
Benioff.
better? Who
Yeah.
better in terms of what's proven? Sure, I'm sure like fucking, Joe Bob Schmo and, Mary Sue Schmo in their basements have fucking written some great fanfic that could, like, they could be like the next great thing, but what the fuck have they proven? What have they shown? And that's where you hire people for these kinds of things. And Jesus, who's better? Who?
Well, building a universe of characters, I mean, people say George R. R. Martin, but I mean, we want to talk about inclusion too. I mean, it's an inclusive universe. There's some badass female characters in Game of Thrones, man. Really badass female characters that are as memorable as any of the guys, more so. And it's just, I don't know. To me, these guys, they seem like pretty solid choices to do a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I
I
mean
just
they've
hope
got
they do
8
something with
years
the Force. Something with the
building this
Force.
cultural footprint.
Yeah.
Like, geez, like you want somebody that can build something. And here's the thing, Star Wars is not exactly in the best place right now.
No,
Without
it
what we've found is that without George Lucas, even as
Mhm.
much as people have bitched about the prequels, that without Lucas's influence, it's been an iffy ride, and a lot of it has just kind of ridden the coattails of the word Star Wars. And I think that, story wise, like personally, I haven't been that impressed at all. I felt they had a good start with Force Awakens, but everything to me has been downhill from there, like just
Hey,
bad choices and everything. So
speaking of Star Wars, we should do this because the podcast will hit about a week after the 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace. And I was just wondering, can you remember where and when you saw Phantom Menace for the first time?
absolutely, I went the opening day. I went
Mm-hmm.
to the first showing. It was a noon screening. I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I stood in line outside. This was in Chicago, or in the suburbs. And I stood in line, and the line was like wrapped outside of the theater. So it like went from
Yeah.
the inside of the theater actually to outside, like all along the parking lot. I remember we were lined up along like the parking lot, and I was waiting to get in. And I went in and watched it, and then immediately got out. And I had bought tickets for that night too, and I saw it again with friends.
Yeah.
So originally I was supposed to go with friends, but I was like, I couldn't
You
wait. I was
wanted
like,
this.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna go by myself first. I don't care.
That
Like
was
I
a
had to
Wednesday. You're
see it.
telling me you skipped school to go see it? Or no, you wouldn't have been in school at that point, I
I
guess.
was in college, man.
Yeah, you see, for me, it was 99, so it was my last year of high school, right? And it's funny because my 20th high school reunion was on Saturday. And it was, so my friends had skipped school to buy tickets, and they got me a ticket, and like weeks before when they first went on sale. So it was the Wednesday, and we didn't go during the day because we were in school, but we went to see the 7 o'clock show, right? And we were waiting in line. The line was fucking huge. And I remember we went to this restaurant, Dick Ann's, and a guy who I ended up becoming friends with later, Richard, was the cook there, and he was talking about how he had seen it at the midnight screening, and it wasn't all that great, and whatever. And we were all pissed off. And anyway, we were young. We saw it, and I remember being overwhelmed at first because I was just so looking forward to it, and it was just almost too much to take in. And
Yeah, yeah.
and I couldn't
So
really
much
even
build up.
yeah, I couldn't even really give you my opinion about it. It was just because it was almost too much. And I remember I went back to see it that weekend, and that's when it started to gel for me a little bit. I'd known things going in. I knew that Qui-Gon was going to die because the CD soundtrack gave it away. One of
Yeah,
the
I
tracks,
remember that.
Qui-Gon falls.
It's
And
like
it was so
straight up the
stupid.
death of Qui-Gon.
Yeah, it was so dumb. But the movie though, I found I had a really hard time forming an opinion about it that whole summer, and it was only when it hit VHS later that like in the winter that I started to be able to articulate how I felt about it, because it was, I think, probably the first time I ever was really looking forward to something and had that kind of disappointment. And I am to this day, like I have a certain nostalgia for it, but I don't think it's particularly a good movie. but I do have a
Yeah,
nostalgia for
I
it.
love it.
Like it does,
I
it
love
does.
all the prequels. I love all
It
of them.
does. I do have a nostalgia for it because it is very evocative for me of that era and of that time. I hear things like Duel of the Fates, and stuff, and I could almost kind of smell the movie theater lobby, right? And I just remember
Yeah.
vividly being in high school in that last year. But I mean, I tried watching it again a little while ago, and I find the whole trilogy kind of difficult to sit through.
I love them. I think that there's more
You're
good
wrong.
than bad. I think that Jar Jar is awful. I think that hinging, and you watch that documentary on the making of Phantom Menace, and you see how much Lucas was hanging
That's a
Phantom
good
Menace on Jar
documentary.
Jar.
That's
Oh,
actually a very good
it's
documentary.
fantastic. It is a wonderful watch.
Yeah.
If anything, just to kind of like it's a hindsight watch, where you look at it and you're like, God damn, I wish I could go back and talk to them.
The choices that were made along the way and how they were kind of
Yeah. But I love like this. It was a movie that embraced like Jedi and Jedi lore and all that stuff, and that's what I want out of Star Wars. I don't give that I don't give as much credence to like, oh boy, spaceships and creatures and aliens. Like I'm more into the Jedi's and lightsabers and shit like that. Like that's what I want to see, and that was very very much ingrained in the prequels, and that's something that's kind of lost in the new Star Wars films. Like that's minuscule. Very little fucking lightsaber action, or
yeah.
the Jedi lore is very kind of like it's kind of washed over.
Mhm.
It's
I
not
hope
as
that Benioff and Weiss bring it back because if anybody could,
I
it
do
would be
too.
that.
I do too, and I hope that they can uh I don't know, embrace the greatness. And I think that's probably one of the big things that's on their plate. It's a huge undertaking, is to say, can we capture what or recapture or reinvent what Lucas created and take it into the next era, and a huge, huge aspect of that, the biggest aspect, is the Jedi aspect, the lightsabers and this otherworldly thing, the Force. I think that's where Star Wars rotates.
Phantom
And
Menace does have a great lightsaber duel too. I have to say, like the
yeah,
movie
like
is
one of
worth
the
watching.
best.
Just that amazing finale.
That I think that I love Attack of the Clones too. I don't give a fuck. I love the fucking battle at Geonosis. I love the battle at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I think that I think that where the films suffer the most is honestly in Lucas's direction of the actors.
Yeah,
I just don't feel like
big
he's a
time.
great actor's director. And he doesn't really know how to pull out the best performance. I mean, you have some great fucking actors in there, and the only one that really rises above the fact that Lucas can't really direct actors
Ewan McGregor.
is Ewan McGregor. Like he is a great fucking Obi-Wan, and that's why I think a lot of people, myself included, really want to see an
Mhm.
Obi-Wan show or something, because he's fucking fantastic,
My
and
big
everyone
problem.
else fails.
My big problem with the acting, and this goes to Natalie Portman as well, but particularly with Hayden Christensen, is that whenever they're talking to a CGI character, you can see in their eyes that they're looking at nothing.
Yeah,
And that's where the acting shortcomings really come up. Whereas Ewan McGregor, I really feel like he's looking at Jar Jar Binks or he's looking at a CGI character when he's talking. Like he acts enough that he can evoke that there's this thing in front of him, not just a
yeah,
fucking tennis ball. And that's what the great acting is for him. And I
yeah.
think he's probably the only one of the leads in the movies that manages to do that.
Well,
Um,
and Liam Neeson was great too as
yeah, yeah,
Qui,
Liam
but
Neeson
he
was
was
great.
shortchanged. But I mean, he was great. I thought he was awesome. Like I
Mhm,
honestly wish that he would have lasted.
mhm.
Maybe died in Revenge of the Sith or something. But I guess he had to die in order for Obi-Wan to train Anakin. But
Speaking of movies that I'm looking forward to, though, I have to say one of the ones that I'm super excited for is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, as we record this, is probably premiering tonight at Cannes. And it's funny because I'm in Europe right now, and I have to admit that I looked into seeing how fast I could get to Cannes after the junket to try and get there. The problem is I wouldn't have been able to make it because I would have had to have missed the junket. And as Fox is very nicely paid for my trip to London, I can't really justify skipping the junket to
like,
go
I want to
They,
go
they, they,
see a good movie.
yeah, I think they get a little pissed off. But no, I was trying to figure out a way to go because I was gonna like maybe take another day off or something like that and try to make it my way down to Cannes. But apparently the public screenings that you can't actually get into those; they're by invitation only, and I couldn't get into any of the press screenings because I'm not there as press. So I was kind of but I was entertaining the thought. I was trying to think of a way that I could possibly get there to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because I'm that excited to see it. And it's funny as we say this, Tarantino just put out a much mocked uh, post on Instagram asking the press not to spoil it, which everybody was talking about this morning. And I have to say, I get what he's saying, though. I don't see why it's so controversial. Clearly, there's some big kind of twist in it along the lines of Inglourious Basterds. And if somebody had told you beforehand what happened at the end of Inglourious Basterds before you saw it, wouldn't you be fucking pissed off? And wouldn't it mar
Yeah,
your?
and I see people on Twitter too, like trying to defend uh people giving out spoilers. And I think
Yeah,
that's just kind of it's kind of dickish. And I
yeah.
get it. Like I do feel like you are responsible to avoid spoilers, but you just have to know where you're going. If you're going to spend a lot of time on Twitter and you're going to go down these rabbit holes and then bitch and complain about being spoiled, it's your own goddamn fault.
Look,
It's like if somebody says, "Hey, here's a sign posted. It says there's mines ahead. So if you walk through that field right there, you could get blown up and die." And you're like, "Well, I'm just going to go ahead and walk through there." And then you get blown up. It's on you.
and look,
You were warned.
the pretentious French press that's going to be there. We know them. We see them around.
They're going to ruin everything.
They're going
going
to
to
spoil this movie. They're going to spoil the shit out of it. Yeah, and Tarantino is just trying to get them to fucking chill, and probably the American
they won't
not to jump on the bandwagon. I think the American critics won't do it because I think that they don't want to, because Tarantino for sure will see if somebody spoiled it for it, and when he's doing the junkets, they're not going to get interviews. But for sure, there are going to be a lot of critics that are going to spoil the ending because I'm sure something very provocative happens,
Yeah.
But I have to say, though, having watched the new trailer, I mean, I loved both trailers, and it just looks like exactly my cup of tea, and I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, it looks great. It's so Tarantino, and it seems like at first I'm like, oh my God, like I was laughing out loud, like this is some funny, like kind of wild shit. But then it definitely looks like it's gonna take a dark turn, like
Well,
where
because you see Brad Pitt's character interacting with the Manson family,
yeah.
and
And I feel like this is gonna be another kind of revisionist history movie.
well, I feel that Brad Pitt is gonna is gonna save Sharon Tate or something like that. Like it's like I feel like if you watch the trailer, it seems like he's getting wind of what they're like, and Tarantino's clearly said he's the deadliest man alive, and he can kill with any kind of edged weapon, and and he's got this whole background where he's a killer, and it's like I feel like he's teeing something up there that like they're gonna like Manson family are gonna die.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing too, and this is maybe kind of I don't think it's controversial, but I think in some ways that doing a revisionist history is kind of dangerous.
Yes.
Because
it
negates the reality of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And I get it, like, oh, it's it's supposed to be kind of a parody, but I don't know, Tarantino doesn't really do parody.
No.
And it's like doing a story and then like making it a happier ending doesn't really do service to what actually happened. Now, and I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know.
Well, we don't know that happens.
But if it's like Inglourious Basterds, where that's seeing Hitler get shot in the face and then blown up in a theater, that is kind of like wish, that the thing where like, oh man, what should have happened is this. You know what I'm saying? It's like this dream scenario. And if Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is just like something where Brad Pitt goes in and kills fucking Charles Manson and saves Sharon Tate, I feel like I don't know. Is that
Well,
I got to toil with that.
People won't react to it well if that's what happens. But I think also Tarantino, I was reading a think piece about it, is that he's always said that for him, the Manson murders are what kind of changed Hollywood, right? And that kind of opened the door for the corporations to take over because it was seen like the hedonism of old Hollywood was kind of, seen as, look what happens, if people go unchecked and at that point the corporations came in and that's what changed movies. And he really fetishizes the old style of movie making, right?
Yeah.
And he sees it as something destructive, I think, that happened to Hollywood. And so I don't know. I mean, but then again, who knows what it's going to turn out like. I mean, I read there's a book that he's apparently heavily influenced by called The Studio by John Philip Dunn. And I've read that book, and it's a fascinating book, and it does look like it's about a lot of people in that era trying to figure out how to to work in the late 60s and to work in that era and to deal with changing audiences and changing tastes. And I don't know, I mean, it looks pretty great to me. And I love all this footage of DiCaprio doing these schlocky action movies like that, where it's like the
so
one-eyed
good.
World War II movie, like burning the Nazis with the flamethrowers. I mean, I think it's going to be a really fun movie. I mean, I cannot wait to see it. I'm more excited for that than even seeing The Irishman. And Scorsese is my favorite director. But those, I mean, I'm telling you though, The Irishman and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the same year, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, I'm right there with you. I think it just looks amazing. I can't wait to see it. That is the only issue that I have though is, and it's a what if scenario, obviously, because I don't
Yeah,
know
'cause
what
we don't know
happens. But
what's gonna happen. It might have a
if it
fucking
does
great
go that
ending.
route, I feel like I'm gonna have a problem with it. But fuck, I don't know. I guess you just got to see it to find out. But
I mean, who knows? Brad Pitt might join the family and be involved
or
in the
that, yeah,
killings
yeah,
too. You never
yeah,
know.
that's true.
Um, it's funny though. A couple of weeks ago, you and I were talking about potential Batman castings, and it's not a done deal yet, like people are saying it is. Although it might be a done deal by the time of the podcast.
I feel like it is. I mean, they've
Yeah,
got announcements at cons
yeah.
like referencing him as Batman, so I don't know.
But
Feels
yes,
like it would be very
Robert
weird.
Pattinson will probably be playing Bruce Wayne / Batman. And
Battinson.
yeah, and I have to say, I was 100% on board with it when it was a rumor, and I'm 100% on board with it now. More so after seeing High Life. I thought when I saw Good Time, that was the movie that really won me over to Robert Pattinson to see like what this guy was really capable of. And it was something that had started with Lost City of Z. Then, I mean, Good Time really kind of solidified it. And then I saw this movie High Life a few weeks ago. And the thing about High Life is High Life's a very strange art house movie, but what Pattinson plays in the movie is something that he's never played before. He's not a weird guy in the film. He's a very moral, upstanding character, a very noble character, who's a father who takes this girl under his wing and raises her and has to be mature and has to be, you know, uh, heroic. And I'd never seen him really play heroic before, and he absolutely nailed it and seemed mature. And I mean, if that's I could see that being the kind of thing that he would bring to Batman. And between Good Time and High Life, I mean, I could see easily how Matt Reeves would have been won over by Pattinson. I think he's an inspired choice, and I truly believe that he could be a great Batman. He needs to hit the gym and bulk up, obviously, but I
No,
really,
that I don't think so. I don't think
no,
so. I think he should be skinny Batman.
skinny Batman. I mean, who knows? Though next time we see him, he
Totally
might be
kidding.
a fucking beast. Though the guy's
Well,
over
I mean, you
6.
don't listen. If you're
He
gonna
might
play a
be a
superhero,
yeah.
you're gonna have to go on the superhero diet and the
Harry Cavill
superhero.
was small. Harry Cavill was small, and now look at him.
Yeah, I mean, well, he wasn't small. He was fit.
He
But
was,
yeah, he
and so
wasn't.
was Robert,
He
Robert
was
Pattinson was fit
nothing.
too. Robert
Yeah,
Pattinson
he
was
was
fit as
nothing
well.
like what he is now.
Yeah. But Robert Pattinson
So
was fit too, and like he might be by the time Comic-Con rolls around, he might be a beast. You know.
yeah, and I'm I'm positive that it's going to go that route. Obviously, there's been a lot of backlash.
I don't find like
Which
there
is
has been that much backlash though. I feel like
there
people, for the
has.
most part, are on board with it. Well, it's the very outspoken minority, I think, that are not on board with it. But I feel like most people seem to be down with it. I mean, it really reminds me of Michael Keaton when he was
No,
signed up.
listen, it's everybody. It's
Affleck,
everybody. I wrote the Ben Affleck announcement, the story, and I wrote the Battinson story, and it's you could set them up side by side, and it's the same fucking
and
type of
Daniel
premise.
Craig. When Daniel Craig was announced as James
It's the
Bond, people
same
always
shit.
forget how rough the backlash was against him. It was
Yeah,
awful.
like, oh, a blonde Bond. What is
Yeah,
this?
James
Blah, blah,
Bond.
blah.
Everybody was
Shut
so upset, and now he's one of the best Bonds ever, maybe the best Bond
I'll
ever.
tell
And
you what gets me though is like, you know, these people. Okay, so here's the thing: like whether you like what they make or not, the people in Hollywood, somebody like Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers, no matter
yeah,
what you may think,
it's not a
they
decision
do
made like
this for a living. They
yeah.
don't just like pull shit out of a fucking hat and say, "Oh, hey, let's just make Robert Pattinson Batman." Do
Yeah,
you think
because
they
just
don't
for
think
kicks, just
that?
for fun, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that they don't look forward and say, "Okay, well, what can we utilize from him? What do we want to get from him?" Obviously they think, "Okay, well, obviously he's gonna have to bulk up. He's gonna have to look like a superhero. Does he have the range?" And Matt Reeves is looking at it, and he's like, "This is what I want from Robert Pattinson as Batman." Reeves knows what the fuck he's doing in that regard. Whether you agree with it or not, or whether you even like it, it doesn't matter. Reeves as an artist, as a filmmaker, knows what he wants out of Robert Pattinson, which is why he was cast. Presumably, it's not official until Warner Brothers announces it, but it feels pretty goddamn official.
I'm telling you though, people need to see High Life and Good Time. You watch those two movies.
Go see Lost City of Z. Fucking Pattinson's great in that.
Lost City of Z, he is very good in it, but I'm telling you, it's just like Lost City of Z. I liked him in, but I found he was also doing kind of the method actor mumbling thing. If you watch Good Time and you watch High Life, though, he gives, especially in High Life, he gives a really straightforward, earnest performance, and I'd never seen him do that before. And I thought he was fantastic in it. He was extremely well directed, and it reminds me a lot of Channing Tatum. You know, Channing Tatum, I didn't like at first either. I thought he was a shitty actor, and he was kind of a shitty actor.
Well, he didn't really have roles to do anything.
He started working with good directors and eventually became a very good actor. You know, I mean, I think it was the Magic Mike movies and Haywire when he started working with Soderbergh, and now I would say that Channing Tatum is a very good actor. You know, and it's the same thing with Pattinson. You know, I think he worked with great directors, and you know, Claire Denis and the Safety brothers, and you know, and James Gray, and now he's gonna be Batman, and he's working with Nolan.
And now, you know, and everybody's trying to hold Twilight over his head like it's some kind of stain on his career, and it's like, dude, he was young, and that was like where he started. It was a huge franchise, and people did love him in it, but. Sure. He has grown exponentially. Yeah, he has like expanded his range. It's not like he's done a whole bunch of fucking shiny vampire movies since. Like he's done nothing like it.
Last one was 8 years ago. You know, he's 32
and he's done
now, and he was 23. He was like 23 when it ended, and he's 32 now. He's a man. You know, I mean, he's not a kid anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, you have to afford people that. And, you know, I don't know, you have to look at the backlash of everybody else that's ever been cast. And it's like, you know, trying to pretend like all the other people that have played Batman never did a bad movie or a movie that was just not quite so good. Like Michael Keaton did plenty of fucking goofy, silly movies. Christian Bale did a bunch of forgettable shit that nobody ever saw. Fucking Heath Ledger, you know, I mean, come on. People were like so vehemently against him as Joker. Yeah. And motherfucker, you know, gets an Oscar. It's like, yeah, you might just want to fucking calm down and let these filmmakers do their thing and then decide for yourself after rather than before. You know, it's kind of common sense, but there you go. So we'll see what he does. We'll see what happens with Battinson. There's another Bat person on the horizon that I'm less than enthusiastic about, which is the Ruby Rose Batwoman show on CW. I would love for it to be a great show. I would, you know, I think I've read the Batwoman comic with this character. It's a very complex and cool character, a very interesting character. But this trailer is pretty awful.
I mean, it's a CW show, though. I mean, how good is thing off the CW?
You know, but here's the thing: like, I watched Smallville, and I loved Smallville. I don't think everything on CW is necessarily terrible. This one just looks remarkably just a giant fucking eye roll.
Well, this bargain basement kind of, and
the whole trailer, every line of dialogue is just so like obvious and obviously boring, stupid, redundant shit. I really, you know, I just feel like it's a complete misfire, but who knows, you know, maybe it'll become something. Maybe the material itself is actually better than what they have in the trailer, which can certainly, you know, that has happened. But using the trailer as an indicator, it's not looking good. So I feel like they're just they're turning the character of Batwoman far too much. They're focusing on the woman aspect rather than just her being a character.
The Bat aspect.
Yeah, like Batman doesn't walk around and be like, I'm a man, so man stuff. And that's like, seems like every other line is like, well, I'm a woman as Batman. I'm a woman. It's like, we get it. Just be the fucking character. Like, it's not really about that. So just go be Batwoman.
You want to talk about something, though, that was quietly revolutionary, though? I was reading an article about it, is that John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum came out last week, and it had the first, I think, probably, you know, a tentpole movie's first non-binary character. You know, it was the woman from the table, the woman/man from the table. That was the actress the person who played that part identifies as non-binary. goes by they and stuff like that. And the character was meant like that. But it was just quietly done like that. It was just perfectly done, where it was just a fact and it was part of the characterization.
Yeah.
And in a way that was kind of quietly revolutionary, right? Like, I'm all for that. If somebody wants to identify as non-binary, why not? And I liked the way John Wick did it, that there's a big world out there and there's all kinds of different people in it, and I thought that was beautifully done. And it didn't have to become the defining characteristic of this person either. It was just a fact. That's what they were.
Well, and that's, ultimately, and this is what we were talking about before, is like, if you're trying to get to this point where, if you want the inclusion and the, for all of these, the feminist influence and everything to be there, it's like, just let it be there. You don't have to sound a trumpet every time that it is. Yeah. It's not going to become normal by doing it that way, because you're not allowing it to be normal. You're making a big show of it. If you just let it be, just do it and let it be.
Yeah,
that's one thing. And see, this is kind of the problem I have with the Batwoman trailer, is that like it's all about like we don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like she's like, well, let's get that suit made for a woman, and we're just like, well, no fucking shit, lady. Like, obviously, you're not going to wear Batman's exact suit. It's like, it's this obvious kind of shit that really just hinders it from being something special in its own right, rather than trying to make it something that it isn't. And I feel like if you just do it and let it be, that's what's going to make it normal.
One of my best friends is a critic and is gay, and always likes it in a movie where you just have a character who's randomly gay and it's not necessarily a big deal. Like, there's this one movie, Blitz, a Jason Statham movie, where like, it's not a great movie, but there's a part where Statham is saying something really homophobic, and then Paddy Considine's character is like, "Hey, fuck off, I'm gay," and he's like, "Oh, okay, sorry." And then the character is just, and it's like the whole movie that's not, it's never really brought up again, but just the guy happens to be gay, and it wasn't, and it was just kind of one of those things like, "Go fuck yourself, I'm gay," and then it was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, we're in an interesting time.
Yeah,
where
I think they should have those characters, but I think that in our lives, in our real lives, we normalize it, right? Like, when I see if somebody's gay, I don't like, oh, whoa, they're gay.
Yeah, I don't fucking break out a flute from my backpack and play a little song and ditty and dance.
It's a normal thing for me if I hear that somebody's gay. I think, okay, it doesn't really change the way I think of the person. If I like the person, I like the person, and if they're gay, I'm glad that they're out and that they're comfortable with it. Because they should be, because it's normal now, and that's the way it should be in movies too, and with everything.
Yeah,
I do think there needs to be more diversity and more inclusion, but I think it should be done maybe more the way that you're saying that it should be done, where it's just,
I think it should be done naturally.
Batwoman should be a character, and a strong character, but it doesn't have to necessarily be.
But why is it hinged on her being female? Just be Batwoman.
She is a woman. I mean, she is, and it should just be, that's the thing. She's a strong female character.
Right, but is she defined by her gender? Like, Batman is not defined by his gender at all. Like,
just by being a strong female character, she's empowering.
Or just being a strong character in general. Just be a strong character. Like, that's really all that it should be about, But
speaking of strong characters, though, you know who's a strong character?
Mel Gibson.
Is that what you want to talk about? I thought we were going to John Wick, but yeah, Mel Gibson.
Sorry. Well, yeah, we were moving on to John. Let's do John Wick. You go whatever you take it. Whichever direction you want to go.
It's funny. We should actually do the Mel Gibson story first, because we could do a longer talk about John Wick. I heard an interesting story about Mel Gibson this morning too. Somebody who had been on a junket with him before, and that was kind of funny. But it's funny. One of our junketeers actually asked Michael Fassbender about Wild Bunch, and apparently Fassbender was very coy in his answer, making it seem that it was in fact going to happen. But yeah, Mel Gibson wants Peter Dinklage, Jamie Foxx, and Michael Fassbender for his Wild Bunch remake, which I don't think is specifically a remake. I think it's set in modern era, like in the drug war kind of. I'm more of a Sicario type thing. But, I'm all for Mel Gibson doing an action movie, doing something hardcore like that. I'm a little bit, dismayed by the fact that he's signed on for like 4 movies in the last week at Cannes, and they all sound like B movies. So I'm afraid that he's going to become another Nicolas Cage, and I think that kind of, when he does stuff like Bruce Willis did, where you just show up for a day on a movie and they sell it by your name, it really cheapens your career, and it seems like he could potentially be heading down that road. But a Wild Bunch thing that he directed, that he really threw himself into, could be great, and that is a very promising cast. I mean, I like Fassbender a lot in the right role. I like Jamie Foxx a lot, also in the right role, and Peter Dinklage. I mean, he's the man. He's great.
Yeah, fuck. I
And
mean,
speaking of also, empowering, Peter Dinklage is a little person, and I always really liked. There was a movie that he did years ago, Find Me Guilty, where he's Vin Diesel's lawyer, which I think is a really underrated movie. It's a Sidney Lumet movie, and they never mention in the movie that he's a little person. But at one point, it's like a quiet scene where he goes up to the podium and he pulls out like a little stool to stand on, and it's like portrayed as not a big deal at all. It's just like, this is okay. He needs it because he needs something to stand on. Like, it's not a big deal. And
exactly.
nobody laughs at it. Nobody thinks twice about it. And it's just, and I
Just
like
make
that.
it normal. Make it
Yes,
normal.
because it is normal. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see him in a movie like The Wild Bunch, because he's
I mean,
fucking,
I think it's
it's a
brilliant.
powerful
I,
actor.
I think it's fucking brilliant. I would love. I mean, first off, I love Peter Dinklage. The guy is fucking.
He's a brilliant actor, man. He really
He's
is.
fucking great, and I've
Yeah.
seen him in more movies than just fucking than just
Oh
Game of
yeah, he's
Thrones.
been
Like
in
he is
everything.
just he is a great actor, and I just want to see him in more stuff. And to see him in Wild Bunch would be awesome. Like
He's
Mel
a great
Gibson directing
actor.
Wild Bunch with fucking Dinklage, Fassy, fucking Jamie Foxx, and presumably Mel Gibson. I would hope that he would be in it as well. Um, that just sounds so fucking great, man. Look, I'm an unabashed Mel Gibson fan. I think he is a phenomenal fucking filmmaker, and I feel cheated that we haven't gotten more films from him. The same as I feel we haven't gotten more from John McTiernan. But I would love for this project, of all the projects that he has brewing, the Wild Bunch is the one I would love to see actually
Yeah.
happen. I
Well,
don't
because
really give a shit about the Mark Wahlberg World War II movie. I'd be fine if that fell through.
well, because that movie's happened many times. I mean, the Wild Bunch is a major studio film, so it could be like a big movie. So
It could be great, and my understanding is it is an update, so it's not actually doesn't take place in Western
yeah, no
time.
shit.
So that could make it even better. So I don't know. I mean, I'm more keen to see that than anything else that Gibson's attached to.
Um, Speaking of
Yep.
movies upcoming, they've already announced that John Wick Chapter 4 was happening, and that's a no shit. If you haven't heard one,
2 years
like,
away.
I can't believe people thought that was going to be the last one. Like, really? Give me a break. It's like the Austin Powers series, where each movie kind of improves upon the other. It's funny. It made more money this weekend than the first one made in its entire run, significantly more money than the first movie made in its entire run. And the first one almost went to VOD. And it just goes to show you, you get a good fucking director, and you get like people that really are hungry and that want to make a good movie, and just how well a sleeper could possibly go. Because the John Wick series, I'm telling you, each movie just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, they keep piling on these layers of like this underbelly of like the
Yeah.
high table and this like assassins kind of guild, and
Mm.
it's just a fun, like, cool world to go into. And I fucking hate assassin movies. Like
Yeah.
they're so overdone, and they've just gotten lame, and it feels like John Wick has made something really great about it and made it far more compelling, and it's just given it this whole mythology that I think is just so cool.
But it's
You know,
obvious they're going to keep making John Wick movies because it's Lionsgate's Golden Goose. It's really the only thing they have going for them at
it's
this point.
Lionsgate's MCU at this point. Like they'd be
That's why you're
stupid
going to
not
get
to milk this
Ballerina.
cow.
You're getting Ballerina too. I mean, it's heavily teed up in the film as well. I mean, it's going to happen.
Ballerina, what?
Well, they've talked about how they're doing a spin-off of John Wick, Ballerina, based on the school that Angelica Houston's character runs in the movie.
That could be
The
cool.
assassin ballerinas.
Well, and I also feel
movie.
like Holly Berry more than fucking made a
Oh
footprint
yeah.
to spin off Sophia into her
Well,
own thing.
there's a whole world out there for her.
I would absolutely see a
And
Sophia action movie. That would be fucking great.
So much with her and her daughter, and now she's turned against the high table as well. And fucking Braun wants her dead. I mean, it's she's got her dogs. I mean, it could absolutely be a movie. Sure, it could.
Oh, for sure. And you could easily have John Wick appear in it if you wanted,
Yeah.
or not. It doesn't matter. I think it would help, but maybe he comes in for a small scene, just like she came in for a small scene in John Wick 3, but she was great, and it's great to see Holly back, in something like that. And I think it's great that she basically just took that fucking role.
Oh, she
what I'm
nailed
saying?
it.
Like
She
she just
absolutely
but I
made.
mean, no, I mean, she literally took, like, she called Chad Stahelski and said she wanted to be in a John Wick 3. Like she just wanted that. She wanted it so bad. And she even talked about it in the junket, which I think is interesting and true, is that, you know, the John Wick series this isn't just like a male driven series that only
No.
dudes like. She's like, you know, she's like, every woman I know loves the John Wick movies. And
Sure.
she wanted to be a part of it. And I just think it's awesome. And you know what's funny is I remember I was at Target and they had John Wick Chapter 2,
Mm.
the Blu-ray out front. You know how like out front to like, you
Yeah.
know, uh purchases at the fucking checkout, like those impulse purchases, and they had like a tower there, and they were just like these two ladies just sitting there talking about, oh my god, I heard they're making another one, like, and they were like, I can't wait to see that, oh my god, I'm so gonna be there, you know. And that's just not a common thing. Like, you don't think you're gonna hear women talking about being excited for the next John Wick, but you can't discount that demographic and how that helps improve
Yeah.
box office. You know, women going to see an action movie like that is not conventional.
Well, I
So
mean, Laura loved it. She thought it was great, and I mean, and the thing is, you talk about actors that are hungry too. I mean, Holly Berry is clearly into it, and knows
and
that
she
it's
wanted to
important.
make a cool movie.
Throws herself into it. Yeah.
So much respect for that, and respect to her. I was editing the junkets, and if you go and check out ours or any of the other ones, we should check out ours though. She's clearly like sick as fuck. Like, she is like under the weather, like bad sick, and she still did the junket. And a lot of times, what happens is they're just like, no, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm so sick. And she, like, her voice is hardly there, but she like smiles and talks and like doesn't hold back her answers, and I gotta give her extra props for that, you know, for
And she's
doing a
great. And
junket
she's
that
great in
sick.
the movie.
And I've done junkets sick, and it's just
Yeah.
professionalism, though. It's like you gotta fucking man up and do your best, and you know, again, I give her mad props for that. So,
She's great in the movie, and so is McShane. I love him in that
he's
part.
so
And
good.
Fishburne, and also what's his name? Lance
Lance
Reddick.
Reddick,
He's great too.
so
My
good.
choice for the Unsolved Mysteries reboot, if it ever
No,
happens.
that's my choice.
Yeah, and but I mean, who else is great in it is Keanu Reeves, man. I mean, talk about
Yeah,
a
he's all right.
tailor-made part. Yeah, talk about a tailor-made part, though, a part that plays to an actor's strengths. That's Keanu Reeves, man. I mean, he's great in the fight scenes, he's doing his own shit. I mean, that is a great action role for him. And these mature action heroes are all the rage. Keanu Reeves is still a relatively young guy. He could play John Wick
He's
for a
50,
long
dude.
time. Yeah, that's pretty young. He can play. It is young, and he could play John Wick for a long time.
Well, another 10 years at least.
At
But
least
he looks way younger than he actually is. And
he's
there's
54.
there's an interview that he did where he sits down. They bring up a bunch of little puppies. I think
Yeah, I saw it.
it was on BuzzFeed, and you know, the way he answers questions and his responses, I think, are like, I've always been fascinated by Keanu Reeves since Point Break.
Yeah,
I was like obsessed with Point Break when it came out.
me too. Oh yeah.
Like hardcore obsessed. Like, I was like, this fucking movie is so great. Like, I love it. I love Keanu Reeves. I love Patrick Swayze. Like, it was just a great fucking movie. And it's like Keanu has always had this personality and this presence. And there's something about him. And there's like a part where he answers one of the questions when he's, you know, got these little puppies around him. And the question was, how do you stay so grounded? And Keanu just like looks at the camera and he's like, how do I stay so grounded? Gravity.
That's the best, man.
And I was like,
Keanu is
he's so
Keanu.
fucking
He's
awesome.
he's just a character, and he's fascinating.
He's great. He's just like, and he's like this nice guy. And then somebody put out a story. I can't remember who it was. I retweeted it about how when they worked at a movie theater when Keanu was doing The Matrix.
Oh, I
And
saw it. Yeah.
did you see it? Okay, so like Keanu Reeves walks up to buy a ticket for a movie. I can't remember what the movie was. Um, and he's got like this equestrian helmet and just like looks kind of weird. And then the guy immediately recognizes that it's Keanu Reeves, you know? And so in an attempt to get his autograph, the guy's like, hey, I want to give you my employee discount. You just have to sign this. And Keanu was like, well, I don't work here.
Mhm.
So, and the kid was like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. And just rang up the ticket. And, you know, Keanu went in, and then the kid hears a knock at the door to the box office, and it's Keanu Reeves. And he's like, hey, I just realized you probably just wanted my autograph. So here. And he gives him a receipt with his name written on it, with his signature. And then he walks away and throws away an ice cream cone that he had in his hand. And the kid was like, he looks at the receipt and he sees that the receipt was for the ice cream. So Keanu Reeves went into the theater, presumably, that if this all happened, and it sounds very Keanu Reeves-ish, to go after he realized that this kid probably just wanted his autograph, buys an ice cream cone so that he can get a piece of paper to write his autograph on it, and then goes and gives it to this kid and throws away the ice cream. Like, that is so fucking Keanu Reeves. Even if that story were made up, I still would believe it. I would believe that that would still happen in a Keanu Reeves universe. So
I watched Dracula a little while ago. Yeah, he has a range. I mean, I was laughing. Budapest. But I love Keanu though. I love Keanu.
I do like, and you know, he's done some stinkers, sure.
Oh God! I mean, even just this year, Replicas was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, and it's weird. Like, he'll do like a crappy movie, and then, or even a handful of crappy movies, and then he just bounces back with something amazing. And I think it really is a testament to his, you know, his persistence to just make cool material. Like, he just chases it, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't.
Every time people count him out, he bounces back with this iconic part. You know, it was like that with Bill and Ted. He came back with
he did Bill and Ted, and they did Point Break,
and Speed, and then it was The Matrix. You know, people counted him out then, and then after that, he came back with John Wick. You know, and 10 years from now, he might come back with something completely different. Who knows?
Yeah. We have more Bill and Ted on the way, which I'm very excited for.
And who knows? I mean, I think it'll probably do pretty well.
Maybe. It's a tough sell. I mean, there's a whole generation that doesn't even know what the fuck Bill and Ted is. So,
speaking of generation, do we have questions from the new generation of listeners out there?
Well, let's take a look, Christopher.
There's a lot of stuff on John Wick 3 and Batman, which I think we already kind of addressed.
Let's see. This is from Dawn of Justin Lowrick. Would it have hurt to put one known black actress or actor in the film, especially considering Tarantino's profuse use of the N-word in nearly every one of his films? I'm guessing this is for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Isn't Samuel Jackson in it?
I mean, I'd be shocked if Sam Jackson doesn't at least make a cameo.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, you have Mike Moe in as Bruce Lee, and but you know, Hollywood was a different place for black actors at that time.
It wasn't very integrated. No.
Yeah, so it was a very different time, and you know, not the most respectable time for black actors. No. So I think that it's in line with what it was. So, you know, it's like people complain about, oh, hey, they're making this World War II movie and not a single black actor. And it's like, well, let's look at the numbers, you know, like, I mean, are we throwing them in for reality, or are we throwing them in for this revisionist history thing? You know, you have to, like, if you're making a film, you want to try and be accurate, you have to be accurate, whether it offends or not. I think that's important. So,
I mean, I do think he's probably, you know, the guy, whoever wrote this question probably has a point, you know, and I can see. Sure. But you know,
we haven't seen the whole movie, so it's
we haven't seen the movie. And you know, in Tarantino, he makes movies, you know, he follows his own muse, you know, and I'm sure he's got, you know, I mean, he does use the N-word a lot, and I agree. But you know, he's also given a lot of black actors, you know, these great roles. You know, Pam Grier and Samuel Jackson made Samuel Jackson, you know, and introduced a lot of great actors.
Yeah.
You know,
and he's traditionally had like these, you know, pretty diverse.
I mean, he's not a racist. I mean, if anything, he sees himself more as black, I think. But that in itself, I guess, is problematic because he's not black, you know, and he uses this very hurtful word sometimes in his movies very lightly. But you know, it's we haven't.
But it's a word that exists, and it's, you know, better for worse. And
we have.
I think some people fight or would say that it's exploitative and whatnot. But the fact remains. I mean, if I wanted to go listen to some music right now, I guarantee you at least one out of every 4 to 5 songs that word would pop up. So,
yes, but at the same time, though, that's from somebody who's black, though, and I'm not black.
Well, I mean, but if you're putting it out to the public masses. No, but anybody can listen to that song.
I'm not black, though, and I'm not going to use the word. You know, I would never use it.
I don't use it either. I have no desire to use it.
Exactly.
But I'm saying my point is that the word is out there.
Yeah, so sure.
You can't just pretend like it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean like it can't be used in a context that it's actually used. So,
but I mean, I do agree that, you know, it's.
I think the most exploitative version of that was when Tarantino himself used the word in Pulp Fiction. I felt like that was a kind of.
Oh, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tweets are starting to come out.
See what?
The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tweets are starting to come out.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Go spoil it for yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a legit question, but I think we need to see the movie to like really get a full grasp of what it is before we can say that. You know, I don't think every movie needs a diverse cast of if it doesn't fit that parameter. I don't think that every every black movie has to have white actors and vice versa. I think that whatever fits the story is what the cast should be.
I mean, we haven't seen the movie yet, too, though. For all we know, there might be,
Yeah.
an interesting black character, and there might be an interesting perspective. We'll see.
And it's a big fucking cast too. So
It is
we'll
a
see.
huge cast, and you've got to know that he's probably keeping a lot of roles under his hat.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it sounds like he's trying to keep a lot of things quiet.
Mhm.
So, Jamie Drewley, good old Jamie. He wants to know, let's see, Avengers Endgame is at 171 million behind Avatar for number one global. Do we think Endgame will topple it?
Oh my
And
God, 171 million? Yes, of course, definitely.
it's getting closer.
Yeah, I
It's
think
getting closer, but 171 is still a lot of money. That's not nothing. So
I think it's gonna happen.
I think it
We'll see.
will.
Who
I
knows?
do think
Does it
I
matter if
think
it
it will,
doesn't? Though?
but it really all depends on how much how much longevity Endgame has from in the next few weeks, because we're heading into big summer months. We do have some big releases coming. John Wick 3 now has got mad buzz. People are like, that's also a shorter watch.
Well,
Uh,
another one I'm very curious to see how Aladdin does, because that opens this weekend, and
yeah.
I think the big hit that's going to come out in the next couple weeks though is going to be Rocket Man. Like based on what I've heard off of the movie, I think that's going to be
Yeah.
a giant hit.
And even my kid wants to see Rocket Man, and I'll take
Yeah,
him. Like,
and
it's
Godzilla. I
something
mean,
that everybody wants to see. And
Godzilla.
Godzilla's fucking amazing. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm going to see Godzilla again. I loved it. It's my favorite. It is my favorite monster movie ever. I know people
I
that are
think
like,
that Godzilla and Rocket Man are very well positioned
yeah,
because I saw Aladdin, and I can say that Aladdin is very underwhelming. I mean, it's not a terrible movie, but it's not a particularly good movie either. It is underwhelming. I think it's going to do fairly well on name recognition alone and the fact that it's Will Smith, but it is an underwhelming movie. Will Smith is good in it when he's doing his own thing. When he's imitating Robin Williams, it's painful because there's only one Robin Williams.
but
But
you also are a huge fan of the animated movie.
I am absolutely, but I'd be able to go see an Aladdin movie though without that, and I think it's troublesome to have anybody try to do Robin Williams though. But it's weird because they do motion capture for the Blue Genie, and he looks terrible. Like I don't know where the budget went for this because he looks really bad. But for the majority of his role, he's not a Blue Genie. He's a black man. He's Will Smith, and
What? Will Smith is
when
black?
when he's Will Smith, he's fantastic. When he's doing like when it's the genie posing as human, it's really good. And his performance, and there are scenes in the movie that Will Smith does things that are totally unexpected, and he's great. When he's really good in the movie, he's great. But at times when he's doing Robin Williams, he doesn't have the same kind of persona, and it just doesn't come off well. And I also think that the actors that they cast as the leads, except for Jasmine Naomi Scott, who was in Power Rangers, who's very good, I think the kid they got to play Aladdin, Mina Masood, is very green and is not up to being a leading man yet because he's not.
That's kind of like the feeling I got watching the
Yeah,
trailers. Is he looks
and
very
he's
like
handsome. He's very handsome, but I just don't think
not
he's
accomplished enough.
really up to being a lead. They might have done better to hire like an actor from that industry or something like that who was really experienced and who was maybe a star in movies from that region of the world. And there are a lot of them. There's a lot of moviegoers out there. And also the guy who played Jafar was miscast because it's a very bland part, and a lot of people are singling him out, and it's just because he's not memorable. He's not particularly bad, but it's just not a memorable portrayal. And it's also Guy Ritchie very, very, turned down, and it's why hire Guy Ritchie in that case.
Speaking of Guy Ritchie, I can't wait for The Gentleman. I can't wait for you guys to see the trailer for that.
Psyched
Oh,
for
it
that.
looks so good.
But anyway, so I think Aladdin is kind of bland, and with John Wick doing well, there should be some good holdover business. But I think the door is wide open for Rocket Man to be huge, and Godzilla is more of a question mark for me. I'm not sure how it's gonna do, but it could do very well as well. It could be a big word too. So we'll see.
I feel like, oh man, it's hard to call Godzilla just because You just never know how movies like that are gonna do. I personally loved it. I think it's like checks all the blocks for like what you want in a kaiju movie. Um, but you just never know how audiences will
It
respond. You
seemed like
know,
everybody pretty as much has liked it though. If you read the tweets and stuff, the reactions and the
yeah. I mean, the
temper.
people I saw with, like I saw, like with Dan Casey and with Frosty and everybody, like they loved it.
Yeah,
Megan
everyone seems to have
Peters.
liked
There's a
it.
lot of people that watched it. We saw with, and they all loved it. And it was really fucking cool. I liked it much better. I went there for Detective Pikachu and Godzilla, and obviously like Godzilla was far superior and more in line with what I wanted and for my my taste. Pikachu is still great. It's a great like family movie. But Godzilla is more like that's my shit. And I think that's going to be your shit too. So you should go see it.
Have we
Good
got
shit.
any more? Have we got any more fun questions?
Ulysses wants to know now that Game of Thrones is over if we think Watchmen will be the next Game of Thrones.
I mean,
I
I don't
think
know, but
that's
Don
I think
Johnson's in
that's
it,
what
so I'm
HBO
watching it.
wants.
Fucking
Whether or
Don
not
Johnson, man.
I think that's what HBO wants. Whether or not they get it, I don't know.
Don Johnson.
It's hard to say. I don't think that HBO has a Game of Thrones replacement because they've got a lot of new stuff starting. So we'll see if it catches or not.
Yeah, I went to Buckingham Palace today, and I was just hanging out with Prince William, and we were doing cocaine and watching the Heartbeat video over and over again. It was great.
Heartbeat.
Yeah. I'm looking
Looking for
for
the heart. I don't think that's right.
yeah. I mean, I hope it's good. I love Watchmen. I love the movie. I love the comic book, and we'll see.
Sean McKee. If rumors are true and Skywalkers will replace Force users as Jedi, meaning no more Jedi code, won't the galaxy become a complete shithole as every other Force user would fail to the temptation of the dark side? And if they still follow Jedi code, then what's the point? I mean, that's a pretty deep dive, man. I'm gonna have to see the movie to know what the fuck is gonna happen there. I don't know what that actually means, to be honest with you. Are you saying that like Skywalkers will take the name of the Force? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what that is, but we'll see what Rise of Skywalker does. Either way, it's closing out the Skywalker saga. I just hope that it is satisfying, and this is the last of the trilogies of the year of these huge epic trilogy or huge epic long running stories coming to a close with Avengers phase the Infinity saga and the Skywalker saga and Game of Thrones. Like it's these are three huge series coming to a close. So all I'm hoping for is to be satisfied, and I was satisfied with Game of Thrones and Avengers Endgame. So I'm hoping for the same for Rise of Skywalker, especially since I think The Last Jedi is a piece of shit. So I hope that it rights those wrongs. That's where I stand on that. Let's see. Is it true that you will be oh, that's to Mike Moe. I hope you are. Armando wants to know Johnny Handsome or Ford Fairlane. What was the better movie?
Mm,
I love both,
yeah,
but I have a mad soft spot for Johnny Handsome. I even wrote about it in Best Movie You Never
yeah.
Saw.
Johnny Handsome is. I mean, Ford Fairlane is kind of a movie with an asterisk, right? It's fun, in its own kind of cheesy way. I just find it interesting that anybody ever thought that Dice Clay could be in the Dice Man persona, could be an action hero. I just find that very bizarre. But Johnny Handsome is a legitimately good movie, and Mickey Rourke's performance in it is very good. Like it's a movie that holds up extremely well.
Yeah. Johnny Handsome is peak Walter Hill.
I
Like
like
that
when
is just
he's
great.
threatening
It's
the
got a
guy who.
fucking awesome Ry Cooder score that I just love. And
I like
Mickey
when
Rourke
he's
is great in it.
yeah, Lance Henriksen, Alan
Lance
Barkin.
Henriksen, Ellen
There's
Barkin,
the part
Elizabeth
with
McGovern.
there's the part when Elizabeth McGarvin she's being fucked with by the guy at work, and then he takes out the knife and he goes, "I just want to warn you, you could get hurt." He could get hurt. He puts the knife in the guy's face.
Do the right thing, all right?
You could get hurt. Yeah, it's so
It's like
menacing.
jabbing that knife in his neck. He's okay, okay. You let her do whatever the fuck she wants. Yeah, I love Johnny Handsome, man. Fuck, I wish Walter Hill still made movies like that.
Yeah, me too.
Fucking shame, dude. For real. I don't understand how he lost the pulse like that. Fuck. But Walter Hill made some great fucking action movies. So we still have those to fall back on. So, anyways, that's my take. And I think that's it for us, Chris. You Londoner.
What, mate?
Boy,
Well, I'm
Mike,
gonna make the most of my last night. It's 7 o'clock
Mike's
over
for
here,
joining
so
us.
I'm gonna head down to the Thames, and grab some dinner.
Ooh.
Get myself a nice view. Have a couple of drinks.
All right, go get yourself a Guinness. That's what you're supposed to drink there.
London calling,
Love the Guinness.
and more is declared. I've had enough Guinness in my life.
You're like, I'm good. Please, no more fucking Guinness.
I had enough. Yeah.
I think the most Guinness I've ever drank was in London, and it was just kind of like because we were there. But it's a.
I used to chug Irish car bombs, and those days are behind me.
Yeah. I just drink Mai Tais at this point. Mai Tais and
to me, it's a gin and tonic. It's my standard drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm making it at home, I make Mai Tais, or if I'm out and I go to a tiki bar, it's Mai Tais. But there's plenty I can do.
I've never been to a tiki bar in my life. You gotta come.
It's such a shame. I gotta take you sometime, man.
Yeah.
Fuck. I bet you there's some in Montreal. There's got to be one in Montreal.
Sure, I'm sure there are.
Sure. Tiki bars are the fucking best because the drinks are delicious and mega strong at the same time. That's how it's good.
I don't get out much, Paul.
Yeah, you're in London right now. I don't get out much. Oh, fuck. Anyways, hey, thanks for joining us, guys. Check us out on our poorly updated Instagram page.
I posted my
podcast.
photos from the Kubrick exhibit.
I know. Hey, I just think we're getting there.
If you come to London, Paul, man, you got to go to the Kubrick exhibit. It's great. It was really cool.
I'll think about it.
I had a really good time.
Tell me what to do.
Yeah, I had a really good time.
I love London.
Kubrick,
I really love London. I
Yeah.
really do love that city. I love exploring it. I love, like, if I were to live in another country, I would choose to live in, well, I would in another city. I would love to live.
It's expensive here, though.
I'm sure that it is, but like I said, I just said, I didn't say if I could afford it. I just said if I could choose, I would probably choose London or Afghanistan again.
Oh, nice.
Because it's paradise there. Just kidding. It's not. It's hell on earth. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate your feedback, but only when it's good. Not when you leave shitty 1-star reviews because you're offended about what we talk about because you can't handle it. Those guys, if you're listening, just go fuck yourself. Those that listen and have nice things to say, or at least constructive things, we appreciate you. We thank you. We value you. And appreciate all your listenings. I'm going to try and get some more giveaways going here shortly on the Instagram page. So, by all means, give us a follow so that if nothing else, maybe you can get some free stuff. I always make sure that the stuff gets out as best I can. So, we're getting out some hoodies and some Blu-rays, some 4Ks. So, and we will give out some more because I think it's fun and I like to give out shit. I get a lot of shit. I am, but I get a lot of shit. I try it.
London. Thank you very much.
Welcome. You're welcome. You can thank my son for having his birthday when I'm supposed to go to London.
I'm great. Thank God, son had a birthday.
I'm glad you got to go. I've been there many times and I love it. But it's always nice to to send other people.
I'm having a very good time.
It's good. No, and I'm glad that you've made the most of it. So my advice to anybody if you go on like these little trips is
you never know when you're gonna get back. So
yeah. So also check us out on iTunes. You can give us a review there. That's about it. We will have much more to talk about next week. Not sure what, but don't worry. There's a whole lot of news that happens in 7 days.
Oh, sure is.
So lots to talk about. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. We will see you guys next time.